My son told me I contribute nothing valuable, so I proved him wrong in the most brutal way possible. Anthony Ross, corporate lawyer making $400,000 a year, lives rent-free in my $3.2 million house, drives a Mercedes, wears expensive suits, all funded by money I earned working 18-hour days for 50 years. But last Wednesday, in front of his girlfriend's wealthy New York parents, he looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, you just eat our food and contribute nothing valuable to this household." Those rich folks nodded along like he was speaking the absolute truth. I didn't argue, didn't beg, just stared at him for 15 seconds. Then I said, "Interesting perspective, son." What Anthony didn't know was that I'd already planned 3 moves that would strip away everything he thought made him valuable. The first phone call changed everything. You want to know why I did what I did? Let me paint you the picture of what my son became. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. Anthony wasn't always like this. When he was little, he'd sit in my kitchen while I made Sunday sauce, asking me to tell him stories about the old country. He'd practice rolling dough with his tiny hands, flour everywhere, laughing when I'd speak Italian to him. That kid died somewhere along the way to law school. The first sign was the name change. Not legally. He's still Antonio Joseph Ross on paper, but professionally, Anthony Ross. Clean. American. Forgettable. It's easier for clients to pronounce. Dad. Easier to hide. You mean, then came the photo purge. Our family pictures. My parents' wedding in Naples. His baptism at Saints Peter and Paul. Holiday dinners with cousins. All disappeared from the living room. Replaced with generic art from Pottery Barn. 50 years of family history erased. The house needs to look more contemporary for when Elizabeth's colleagues visit. Elizabeth, his girlfriend of 3 years. Old money, New York family. Trust fund baby, who thinks tomato sauce comes from a jar that costs $15 at Whole Foods. But the worst part, the introductions. Last December, Anthony threw a dinner party, invited 10 people from his law firm, Harrington Whitmore and Associates, big shot corporate lawyers, just like him. I was in the kitchen making sure they had enough wine when I heard him talking to his managing partner. "Oh, that's Joseph. He helps with building maintenance around here." Building maintenance? 45 years I owned Rossi's Kitchen on Mulberry Street. 45 years? I fed half of Little Italy, employed 35 people, put my son through Harvard Law School. Now I'm the help. I didn't say anything that night. Just refilled their glasses and listened to them discuss their ski trips to Vail, their weekend houses in the Hamptons, their children's private schools. But I started paying attention to the patterns. Every time someone asked about me, same story. Joseph takes care of the property. Never my father. Never the man who sacrificed everything so I could wear expensive suits. The house itself became a museum of his shame. My mother's crucifix from the hallway gone. The copper pasta machine I brought from Italy in 1975, hidden in the basement. The framed review from the New York Times calling Rossi's Kitchen a Little Italy treasure nowhere to be found. Instead, Anthony filled the walls with his Harvard diplomas, his bar admission certificate, photos of him shaking hands with judges and politicians. Look how American I am. Look how far I've risen above my immigrant father. The money part hurt, too. I sold Rossi's in 2020 for $1.5 million retirement fund. I thought maybe travel a little, see my cousins back in Naples, take it easy after 50 years of 18-hour days. But Anthony had other plans. "Dad, you should invest that money in the house. Renovations will increase the value. It's the smart financial move." So I did. New kitchen, custom cabinets, hardwood floors, landscaping, 500,000 in improvements. Anthony picked out everything. Minimalist, modern, soulless. Know what he said when it was finished? Finally looks like a place I can bring clients to. Not thank you. Dad, not. I appreciate you investing your life savings in our home. Just satisfaction that he'd successfully erased the last traces of where he came from. The social media stuff was almost funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Elizabeth's Instagram account, 400,000 followers, constantly featuring our beautiful New York home. Never mentioned who owned it. Never mentioned who paid for those organic flowers in the foyer or the artisanal cheese platters for her influencer friends. Just grateful for this amazing space. And home is where the heart is. My heart built that space. Sweetheart, my heart in every dollar I earned flipping burgers at dawn, prepping vegetables until midnight, standing on concrete floors until my feet bled. But the breaking point came 4 months ago. Elizabeth's parents were visiting from New York, William and Margaret Harrington, old Yankee money, the kind that's been American since the Mayflower. I was excited, finally, a chance to show them real Italian hospitality. I spent 7 hours making traditional Sunday sauce. San Marzano tomatoes imported from Naples, fresh basil from my garden, sausage from Molinari's, $500 worth of ingredients prepared with 52 years of experience. I'd made enough for 10 people. Figured we'd have a real family dinner, share stories, get to know each other, maybe show them the photo albums from the old days. Instead, Anthony met me at the kitchen door. Dad, we're ordering from Atelier Cren tonight. This is an important dinner for my relationship with Elizabeth's family. $400 for pretentious French food when I just spent all day making enough pasta to feed half the neighborhood. What about the sauce? Put it in containers. We'll eat it later this week? We never did. I found those containers in the garbage 4 days later, untouched. That's when I knew my son wasn't coming back. The little boy who used to help me fold ravioli, who'd beg for extra meatballs, who'd translate for his friends when they came to the restaurant. That boy was gone. In his place stood a stranger wearing my son's face, living in my house, ashamed of everything that made him possible. But I wasn't done learning just how deep his contempt ran. The worst was yet to come. April 20th, 2024, the night everything changed forever. Elizabeth's parents were in town for their second visit. This time, Anthony didn't even pretend to want my help with dinner. They had reservations at Le Bernardin, $500 per person, not including wine. I wasn't invited. Dad, this is really more of a business dinner. William has connections at some major corporations that could benefit my practice. Business dinner at 9:30 p.m. on a Saturday night with your girlfriend's parents. I understand, son. I'll make myself something simple. Actually, there's leftover Chinese food in the fridge from yesterday. You can just heat that up. Leftover Chinese food. While my son and his girlfriend's family ate at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, using money I'd given him for household expenses. But around 11:00, they came back to the house. I heard the front door open, heard Elizabeth's mother's voice echoing through the hallway. Oh my goodness, Anthony, this place is even more beautiful at night with all the lighting. I was in the kitchen, cleaning up from my simple dinner of reheated lo mein when they walked in. Anthony first, then Elizabeth, then her parents. William Harrington, tall and thin with silver hair, wearing a blazer that probably costs more than most people's monthly salary. Margaret Harrington, perfectly styled, carrying a handbag I recognized from Elizabeth's Instagram. Hermes, around $15,000. They were all laughing about something from dinner, some story about their yacht club back in New York. I tried to slip out quietly, give them their space, but Margaret noticed me. "Oh, hello there. You must be Joseph." At least she remembered my name from their last visit. "Good evening, Mrs. Harrington. I hope you enjoyed your dinner." It was divine. Anthony has such excellent taste in restaurants. Anthony jumped in quickly. Dad was just finishing up in the kitchen. He was about to head upstairs. But William Harrington was looking around the space, admiring the custom cabinets I'd paid for, the Italian marble countertops, the professional-grade appliances. "This is really quite impressive. Anthony, the renovation work is top-notch. Must have cost a fortune." Here it comes. I thought. Here's where Anthony acknowledges that I paid for all of this. Here's where he shows a little pride in his old man's generosity. Instead, he said, "Yeah, we invested heavily in the space, really transformed it from what it used to be. We invested." Margaret was opening the refrigerator, looking for sparkling water. She found the containers of leftover pasta I'd made earlier in the week. The good stuff. Homemade pappardelle with bolognese that takes 9 hours to make properly. Oh my, someone's been cooking. This looks delicious. Before Anthony could stop me, I said, "I made that on Thursday. Traditional recipe from my mother's family in Naples. Would you like to try some?" I could heat it up. The look Anthony gave me could have frozen the Hudson River. "Dad, they just finished eating at Le Bernardin. I'm sure they're quite full." But Margaret seemed genuinely interested. "Actually, I'd love to try a small portion. I've been trying to learn more about authentic Italian cooking." I started moving toward the stove, excited to share something real with these people. Something that came from my heart instead of a restaurant check. "Dad," Anthony's voice was sharp, final. "They don't need you to cook for them. You've done enough. Done enough. Like feeding people was a burden, like hospitality was an inconvenience." But I stopped, turned around, faced my son and his girlfriend's parents in the kitchen I'd paid to renovate, surrounded by the appliances I'd bought, standing on the floors I'd installed. That's when William Harrington asked the question that destroyed everything. "So, Joseph, what's your role here exactly? Are you Anthony's business partner?" The pause stretched forever. This was Anthony's moment. His chance to say, "That's my father." His chance to show an ounce of respect for the man who'd made his entire life possible. Instead, Anthony looked his future father-in-law in the eye and said, "Joseph lives here. But honestly, he just eats our food and doesn't contribute anything valuable to the household." The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret Harrington's face went pale. William cleared his throat uncomfortably. Elizabeth stared at the floor. And me, I stood there for exactly 15 seconds, processing what I just heard. My son, the boy I'd worked myself to the bone for, the child I'd sacrificed my health, my social life, my relationship with my extended family for, the kid I'd put through the most expensive schools in Massachusetts. He'd just told his girlfriend's parents that I was a worthless mouth to feed. In my own kitchen, in my own house, using furniture I'd bought, eating food I'd paid for, surrounded by luxuries my 50 years of restaurant work had provided. Finally, I spoke. "Interesting perspective, son." My voice was calm, steady. But something had shifted in that room, and everyone felt it. Anthony tried to backtrack. "Dad, I didn't mean—" No. You meant exactly what you said." I looked at William and Margaret Harrington. These people my son was so desperate to impress. "Enjoy your evening, folks. I have some phone calls to make." I walked upstairs to my bedroom, closed the door and sat down at my desk. Then I opened my laptop and started making the 3 most important phone calls of my life. To Naples, to my lawyer, and to my real estate agent. By morning, my ungrateful son's world would start falling apart. Sunday morning, April 21st, 7:00 a.m. sharp. I was already dressed and sitting at my kitchen table when Anthony stumbled downstairs, still in his pajamas, looking for coffee. Elizabeth and her parents had left the night before, cut their visit short after that dinner conversation. Funny how quickly people flee when they witness real family dysfunction. Dad, about last night. Coffee's fresh, I said, not looking up from my newspaper. Made it 25 minutes ago. He poured himself a cup, added his organic almond milk that costs $10 a half gallon, sat down across from me like we were going to have some heart-to-heart conversation. I think we should talk about what happened. Nothing happened. Son, you told the truth. I respect honesty. That threw him off. He was expecting an argument. Tears? Maybe some kind of emotional scene he could dismiss as Dad being dramatic. Instead, I folded my newspaper, finished my coffee, and stood up. I have some errands to run today. Don't wait up for dinner. My first stop was Legacy Bank on Broadway. Account manager named Patricia Thompson. Been handling my money for 15 years. Professional woman. Always treated me with respect. Remembered details about my family. Mr. Rossi, good to see you. How can I help you today? I need to understand exactly what my house is worth. Patricia, current market value. She pulled up the records on her computer. 3.2 million, just like I thought. Property values in Little Italy had exploded since I bought the place in 1987 for $95,000. Are you considering selling? Considering? Yes. If I did sell, how quickly could it close in this market? Cash offer, no contingencies. 45 days, maybe less. I nodded, made a mental note. Next stop. Immigration law offices of Chen and Partners on Canal Street. I'd done my research online. Found the best firm in the city for family reunification cases. Attorney named David Chen, 40s, sharp dresser, came from immigrant family himself. Understood the situation immediately when I explained what I needed. You want to sponsor 4 family members from Italy. Cousins, you said Marcus, Sophie, Joseph Jr., and Lucia Rossi, ages 20 to 30, all unmarried, no criminal records, college educated or in college. I have their documentation. I'd spent 4 hours on the phone with my cousin Salvatore in Naples the night before getting all the details, making sure everyone was willing to make the move. Mr. Rossi, this is going to be expensive. Filing fees, legal costs, travel expenses, settlement funds. We're looking at roughly $90,000 per family member, $360,000 total minimum. Money is not the problem. And you understand the commitment. You're financially responsible for them for several years. Housing, health insurance, job assistance if needed. I understand completely. Third stop. Sotheby's Realty on Prince Street. Real estate agent named Jennifer Lopez. High-energy woman in her 40s. Knew the Little Italy market inside and out. Mr. Rossi, I haven't seen you since you sold the restaurant. How's retirement treating you? It's been educational. Jennifer, I need to discuss selling my house. Her eyes lit up. She knew the property, knew what it was worth. That's a beautiful home. Prime location, recent renovations. Are you looking to downsize? Something like that. I need this done quickly and quietly. Cash buyers only. No inspections. No financing contingencies. 45-day close maximum. I can have buyers lined up by Tuesday? Perfect. One more thing I don't want my son to know until the papers are signed. Jennifer raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask questions. Understood. We'll handle everything through my office. Final stop. Chase Bank. Different branch from my usual one. Opened a new account separate from anything Anthony might have access to. Transferred $600,000 as a starter fund. By 5:00 p. I was back home. Anthony was in the living room watching college basketball. Feet up on the coffee table, like he owned the place. How were your errands, Dad? Productive? That evening, I made dinner for one. Spaghetti aglio e olio. Simple and perfect. Anthony was out with Elizabeth, probably at some trendy cocktail bar, spending money he hadn't earned on drinks that cost more than my father made in a week. While I ate, I reviewed the documents David Chen had given me. Immigration forms, financial requirements, timeline for the visa process. Everything looked straightforward. My phone buzzed. Text message from Jennifer Lopez. Already have 4 serious inquiries. Can we schedule showings for tomorrow afternoon? I texted back. Yes. Monday 3 to 5:00 p.m. I knew Anthony's schedule better than he did. Every Monday, he and Elizabeth went to some overpriced brunch place in Soho. Then spent the afternoon shopping or visiting galleries. Never home before 7. Perfect. Monday would be the beginning of the end of Anthony's comfortable life. But he still didn't know it yet. Monday, April 22nd, the day I sold my son's future. Anthony and Elizabeth left for brunch at noon. Just like every weekend, off to spend $70 on avocado toast and mimosas while discussing their engagement plans. They'd been talking about it for months. Destination wedding in Tuscany. Naturally. Nothing says I've made it, like getting married in the country your father fled from poverty. Jennifer Lopez arrived at 2:45 with 4 potential buyers. I watched from my bedroom window as they pulled up in their luxury cars, Tesla Model X, Audi Q8, Porsche Cayenne. Tech money, finance money, old money. The kind of buyers who could write a check today and close next week. First showing young tech couple, late 30s, 2 kids, just sold their startup to Amazon for $50 million. They walked through the house like they were already measuring for furniture. The kitchen renovation is gorgeous, the wife said, running her hands over the marble countertops I'd paid for. And this location walking distance to everything in Little Italy. We could be in escrow by Wednesday. The husband told Jennifer. Second, showing investment banker from J.P. Morgan, looking for something impressive to entertain clients. Single guy, early 40s, more money than sense. This place has real character, he said, admiring the crown molding. Not like those sterile condos downtown. I'll offer asking price. Cash. No inspection. Third, showing family with teenage kids moving from Chicago. Father ran a hedge fund. Mother was some kind of art dealer. They spent 25 minutes just in the living room talking about how perfect it would be for hosting dinner parties. The previous owner clearly had excellent taste, the mother said. If she only knew the previous owner was standing upstairs listening to every word. By 5:15, all 4 showings were done. Jennifer found me in the kitchen, practically buzzing with excitement. Mr. Rossi, I've never seen anything like this. 4 cash offers, all at or above asking price. The tech couple offered $3.3 million. The banker offered 3.5 even. The hedge fund family offered 3.1, but want to close in 3 weeks. I thought about it for exactly 40 seconds. I'll take the hedge fund family. 3 weeks works better for my timeline. Don't you want to think about it? Sleep on it, the other offers are higher. Money is not the point here. Jennifer, timing is everything. We shook hands. By 6:00 p.m., I'd signed a purchase agreement for $3,100,000. Closing date, May 13th, 2024, that night. While Anthony was at some wine bar with Elizabeth, I made my second round of phone calls to Naples. Spoke to Marcus first. He was working as a chef in a restaurant outside Naples, making barely enough to live on, sharing a tiny apartment with 3 roommates. Uncle Joseph, are you serious? You really want to sponsor me to come to America? Dead serious. Marcus, I need family around me. Real family. Next was Sophie, studying nursing but struggling to pay for school. Then Joseph Jr., my cousin Salvatore's boy. Brilliant kid, studying engineering, but stuck in a dead-end part-time job. Finally, Lucia, the youngest, an art student with more talent than opportunities. 4 conversations, 4 life-changing offers, 4 enthusiastic acceptances. When? Marcus asked. Visas should be approved by July. You could be here by autumn. By Thursday, David Chen had filed all the immigration paperwork. Friday, I transferred the first installment of legal fees, $75,000. Saturday, I put a deposit down on a studio apartment in Brooklyn, 700 square feet, $2,000 a month. Perfect for a 75-year-old man who didn't need much space. The whole week, Anthony suspected nothing. He was busy with some big case at work, barely home except to sleep and change clothes. When he was around, he treated me the same as always, polite but distant, like I was a piece of furniture he'd inherited. Sunday morning, April 28th. Jennifer called with an update. Buyers are ready to do a final walkthrough Tuesday morning. Everything's on track for May 13th closing. Perfect. Just remember, my son doesn't know yet. Your secret's safe with me. That afternoon, I started packing. Not everything, just the important stuff. Photos of my parents, my restaurant awards, the copper pasta machine, my mother's crucifix, the things Anthony had hidden away, the things he was ashamed of. Everything that mattered to me fit in 4 cardboard boxes. Everything that mattered to him was about to disappear forever. But first, I had some family members to welcome to America. The real show was just beginning. July 20th, 2024, New York International Airport, Terminal H. I stood at the arrivals gate holding 4 signs with names Anthony hadn't heard in 20 years. Marcus Rossi, Sophie Rossi, Joseph Rossi Jr., Lucia Rossi. My family, my real family. The people who still remembered where they came from. The first one through customs was Marcus, 30 years old, built like a wrestler, carrying a single duffel bag and a wooden case that I knew contained his great-grandmother's pasta tools. He spotted me immediately. We had the same nose, same stubborn jawline. Uncle Joseph. He dropped his bag and wrapped me in a hug that nearly cracked my ribs. Real emotion, real gratitude. When was the last time my own son had hugged me like that? Marcus, welcome to America. I still can't believe this is happening. 4 months ago, I was washing dishes in Napoli for €10 an hour. Now you're going to show New York what real Italian cooking looks like. Sophie came next, 25 years old, carrying medical textbooks and a rosary that belonged to our grandmother. She cried when she saw me, actual tears of joy. Uncle, I've been studying English for 7 months, but I'm still nervous about my accent. Your accent is beautiful. Don't let anyone tell you different. Joseph Jr. Everyone called him Joey. Third, 23 years old, engineering degree from University of Naples. Spoke perfect English, with a slight British accent from watching too many BBC documentaries. Uncle Joseph, I brought something for you. He opened his carry-on and pulled out a framed photo. My father, as a young man, standing outside the original Rossi family restaurant in Naples. 1954? I'd never seen this picture before. Nonno Salvatore had it in his attic. Thought you should have it. My hands were shaking as I took the frame. My father, dead 25 years now, looking exactly like Anthony did at that age. The resemblance was startling. Lucia was last, 20 years old, art student, carrying a portfolio case covered in stickers from every museum in Italy. She was shy, but determined. Spoke careful English with that beautiful rolling accent I'd grown up hearing. Uncle Joseph, thank you for this chance. I promise I won't waste it. Sweetheart, your family. Family doesn't waste opportunities. They create them. The drive back to the city was chaos in the best possible way. 4 young people speaking a rapid Italian, pointing at everything, asking a million questions about New York, about opportunities, about their new life. Marcus wanted to know about the restaurant scene. Sophie asked about nursing schools. Joey was fascinated by the tech industry. Lucia kept taking photos of the Brooklyn Bridge. Everything Anthony had rejected, they embraced. I'd rented a temporary house in Queens, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. Modest but comfortable. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. The first permanent address any of them had ever had in America. When we walked in, Sophie immediately went to the kitchen and started making coffee. Real Italian coffee, not the watered-down American version Anthony preferred. Uncle Joseph, Marcus said, looking around the simple living room. This is more than enough. You've given us everything. That night, we had dinner together at my little kitchen table. I'd cooked nothing fancy, just spaghetti carbonara, the way my mother taught me. But they ate like it was a feast, talking and laughing, sharing stories about the family back home. Lucia showed me her artwork, sketches of Italian street scenes, portraits of our relatives, beautiful drawings that captured something real about our heritage. I want to paint American scenes, too, she said. But Italian style, you know? Show people that we bring beauty with us, not just take it. Joey pulled out his laptop and showed me the business plan he'd written during the flight to a consulting company for Italian businesses wanting to expand to America. I can help them avoid the mistakes, understand the culture, be a bridge between the old country and the new one. Sophie had already researched nursing programs at NYU and Columbia. I want to work in elderly care, take care of people like you. Uncle Joseph, people who built something and deserve respect. Marcus was the most ambitious. I want to open a restaurant, not fine dining real food, the kind Nonna used to make. Food with soul. What would you call it? I asked. He smiled. Rossi's, like you did. Carry on the name with pride. That's when I realized what I'd really done. I hadn't just brought 4 young people to America. I'd brought the Rossi legacy back to life. Everything Anthony had tried to erase, they wanted to celebrate. Everything he was ashamed of, they wore like a badge of honor. The next morning, I started the process of selling Anthony's house because there was something he didn't know yet. Something that would destroy his carefully constructed world completely. My new family was about to meet my old one. And only one of them was going to survive the encounter. September 10th, 2024, the day Anthony's world collapsed in front of 50 witnesses. Anthony had been planning this engagement party for 4 months. Elizabeth's parents were flying in from New York. His law partners were coming. The guest list read like a who's who of New York society judges. politicians, tech executives, old money families. The perfect opportunity to show everyone how far he'd risen above his working-class roots. He'd hired caterers from Atelier Cren, the same restaurant where he'd taken Elizabeth's parents that night in April. $15,000 for appetizers and champagne. Another $10,000 for flowers from the most exclusive florist in Manhattan. This is going to be the event of the season, Elizabeth told her Instagram followers. Can't wait to celebrate our love in our beautiful home. Our home. Still calling it that, even though she'd never paid a dime toward the mortgage. I stayed out of their way during the setup. Watched from my bedroom window as workers transformed my backyard into some kind of garden party fantasy. White tents, string lights, rented furniture that cost more per day than most people's weekly salary. Anthony was in full control freak mode, directing every detail, making sure everything looked perfect for his big social debut as an engaged man. The bar goes there, not there. I want everyone to have a clear view of the garden when they walk in. Are you sure about these flowers? They need to photograph well for social media. Did someone move that table? Everything needs to be symmetrical. By 7:00 p.m., the first guests started arriving. I recognized most of them people who'd been to the house before, people who thought I was the hired help. William and Margaret Harrington pulled up in their rental Rolls-Royce, dressed like they were attending a state dinner. Anthony rushed out to greet them, all smiles and perfect manners. William, Margaret, welcome back to New York. You remember our home? Of course. Our home. The house I'd bought with restaurant grease under my fingernails and arthritis in my hands from 45 years of standing on concrete floors. By 8:30, the party was in full swing. 50 people wandering around my backyard drinking champagne that cost more per bottle than I used to make in a day. Eating appetizers they couldn't pronounce. I could hear the conversations from my window. Anthony introducing Elizabeth to his managing partner. Discussion of their wedding plans. Destination ceremony in Tuscany. Reception for 250 guests. Honeymoon on the Amalfi Coast. We're thinking October next year, Elizabeth was saying. Something intimate but elegant. Intimate. 250 guests. That's when I heard the sound that changed everything. A diesel engine rumbling up the street. Air brakes hissing. The unmistakable sound of a moving truck stopping right in front of my house. I looked out the window and smiled. Perfect timing. The conversations in the backyard started to die down as people noticed the commotion out front. Through the side gate, I could see guests craning their necks, trying to figure out what was happening. Anthony appeared at the front door, still holding his champagne glass, looking confused and annoyed. "Excuse me," he called to the moving crew. "There must be some mistake. We're not moving anywhere." The crew chief, a big guy named Rodriguez, checked his paperwork. "This is 1247 Mulberry Street, right? We're here for the Rossi job." "Yes, this is Rossi. But you, Anthony Rossi?" "Yes, but I don't understand. I didn't hire any movers." That's when I stepped onto the front porch. "I did." Anthony spun around, his face going pale. Behind him, I could see his guests starting to gather, drawn by the drama unfolding at the front of the house. "Dad, what's going on?" Rodriguez looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "Sir, we have instructions to pack and move everything in the house. Settlements tomorrow morning, and the new owners want to do a walkthrough at noon." "Settlement?" Anthony's voice cracked. "What settlement?" I walked down the front steps, stood face to face with my son in front of 50 witnesses, including Elizabeth's parents, his law partners, and half the social elite of New York. "I sold the house, son." The silence that followed was deafening. Someone's champagne glass hit the ground and shattered. You what? Sold it. May 13th, to be exact. The Hendricks, lovely family from Chicago. Hedge fund money? They're taking possession tomorrow. Anthony's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, panic, rage. Behind him, I could see Elizabeth covering her mouth with both hands, her perfect engagement party crumbling in real time. Dad, this is impossible. You can't just sell the house without telling me. I live here. You live here rent-free. I corrected. Big difference. William Harrington stepped forward, looking like he'd swallowed something sour. Joseph, surely there's been some misunderstanding. Anthony and Elizabeth are engaged. They're planning their future. Their future, I repeated. Interesting. I looked around at all these people, these pillars of New York society, these judges and lawyers and trust fund babies who'd been eating my food and drinking my wine for years while treating me like the help. Tell me, Mr. Harrington, what future exactly? The one where my son continues to live off my generosity while telling people I contribute nothing valuable. More silence. A few guests started to back away, sensing this was about to get much worse. Dad, please, not here. Not now. When then? Anthony, when would be a good time to discuss how you've spent the last 3 years treating me like hired help in my own house? But I wasn't done. The real bombshell was still coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I said loud enough for everyone to hear, since you're all here, I'd like to introduce you to some people. Anthony looked confused. Dad, what are you talking about? I walked to the side gate and opened it wide. Marcus, Sophie, Joey, Lucia, come and meet my son's friends. 4 young people stepped into the backyard, and the entire party went silent. My Italian cousins dressed nicely, but simply, carrying themselves with the quiet dignity that comes from knowing exactly who you are and where you come from. Marcus stepped forward first, extending his hand to Anthony. You must be Antonio. I'm Marcus Rossi, your cousin from Naples. Uncle Joseph has told us so much about you. Anthony stared at the outstretched hand like it was a snake. What? These are your family members, I announced to the crowd. The Rossi cousins from Italy. I brought them here with the money from selling this house. Elizabeth grabbed Anthony's arm. Anthony, what is he talking about? Sophie stepped forward, her English careful but clear. Mister, Anthony, your father. He is a saint. He sponsored us all to come to America, gave us new life. I could see the color draining from Anthony's face as the implications hit him. Not only had I sold his house, but I'd used his inheritance to bring over people who represented everything he had tried to escape. Dad, we need to talk privately. No more private conversations. Son, these people deserve to know who they've been socializing with. I turned to address the crowd directly. 50 people, including his boss, his girlfriend's parents, and half the legal establishment of New York. You see, my son here has spent the last few years telling people I contribute nothing valuable, that I just eat his food and take up space. Interesting perspective from someone who's never paid rent, never contributed to groceries, never even said thank you. Margaret Harrington whispered something urgent to her husband. Several of Anthony's law partners exchanged uncomfortable glances. But here's what Anthony forgot to mention during his little character assassination. This house, I bought it in 1987 for $95,000. Every mortgage payment for 41 years came from my restaurant earnings. Every renovation, every improvement, every stick of furniture. My money. Joey pulled out his phone, showing pictures. Uncle Joseph, he works so hard. 18 hours every day for 45 years. We see the photos of his restaurant, all the awards, all the people he fed. That's right, I continued. Rossi's Kitchen on Mulberry Street. 50 years feeding the city. 35 employees. James Beard Award nomination in 2005. But Anthony here was embarrassed by all that. Changed his professional name to Anthony Ross. Hid the family photos. Told people I was building maintenance. A murmur went through the crowd. Now some of these people probably remembered Rossi's Kitchen. Probably ate there back in the day. So when he looked me in the eye 6 months ago and said I contribute nothing valuable, I decided to show him what valuable really means. Lucia stepped forward carrying her portfolio case. Uncle Joseph, he bring us here. Give us everything. American dream. Just like that. We will never forget. $3,100,000, I announced. That's what the house sold for. Every penny went to bringing my real family to America. Legal fees, immigration costs, travel expenses, settlement funds, housing, education, business startup money. Anthony finally found his voice. Dad, you can't be serious. That was my inheritance, my future. Your future, I laughed. A son. You threw away your future the moment you decided to be ashamed of the man who gave you everything. William Harrington stepped forward, his face red. Joseph, this is highly irregular. Anthony had reasonable expectations regarding the family home. Mr. Harrington, Marcus interrupted. With respect, Antonio, he had no expectations. Uncle Joseph, he owed nothing to anyone who treat him with disrespect. This is insane, Elizabeth said, her voice shaking. Anthony, tell them this is some kind of misunderstanding. But Anthony couldn't speak. He was staring at his cousins. These people who looked like him, sounded like the grandmother he'd barely remembered, represented everything he'd spent years running from. Actually, Sophie said, pulling out some papers, we have something to show everyone. She handed me a folder. Inside were photographs from the Rossi family restaurant in Naples, going back 4 generations. Pictures of Anthony's great-grandfather, grandfather, relatives he'd never bothered to learn about. This is our family history, I said, holding up the photos. 4 generations of Rossi men and women who built something from nothing, who took pride in feeding people, in hard work, in family loyalty. I looked directly at Anthony. Your great-grandfather started with a pushcart in Naples. Your grandfather expanded to a real restaurant. I brought the name to America and made it successful enough to put you through Harvard Law. And now, Marcus added, we continue the tradition. I'm opening a new Rossi's restaurant in Little Italy. Sophie is starting nursing school. Joey has a consulting business. Lucia is enrolled at the Art Institute. All of them grateful, I said. All of them proud of where they come from. All of them willing to work hard and honor the family name instead of hiding from it. The party guests were starting to leave now, sensing this family drama was far from over. Anthony's managing partner shook his head and walked away without saying goodbye. 2 of the judges made polite excuses and headed for their cars. Elizabeth's parents were whispering urgently to each other by the garden gate. Elizabeth, Margaret Harrington called. We need to leave now. Mom, wait. Now. Elizabeth. I watched as Anthony's carefully constructed world crumbled piece by piece. His boss leaving without a word. His future in-laws fleeing like the house was on fire. His girlfriend looking at him like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. Anthony, Elizabeth said quietly, we need to talk. She pulled off her engagement ring. $50,000, according to the insurance papers I'd seen, and placed it on the patio table. I can't do this. I can't marry someone who would treat their own father this way. And just like that, she was gone, too. Anthony stood alone in his expensive suit, surrounded by the ruins of his engagement party, facing 4 Italian cousins who embodied everything he'd tried to escape. "Congratulations, son," I said. "You got exactly what you wanted. Freedom from your embarrassing immigrant family. Now you're free from everything else, too." The moving truck finished loading at 12:30 that night. Anthony stood in the empty living room, staring at the walls where our family photos used to hang before he took them down. The house echoed now. No furniture, no belongings, nothing left of the life he'd built on my foundation. "Where am I supposed to go?" he asked. "That's not my problem anymore." "Son," Rodriguez, the crew chief, handed me the final paperwork. "Everything's loaded, Mr. Rossi. We'll deliver to your new place in Queens tomorrow morning." "Thank you, Rodriguez. There's a bonus in there for working so late." As the truck pulled away, Anthony's phone started buzzing. Text messages, social media notifications. Word travels fast in New York's legal circles, especially when it involves public humiliation. I could see him reading the messages, his face getting paler with each one. "Dad, my phone is blowing up. Someone posted video from tonight on Instagram." Elizabeth's friends were filming the whole thing. Of course they were. Rich kids document everything, especially drama. "How many views?" he checked. 55,000 and climbing? Someone tagged it engagement party meltdown in Italian justice. The irony was perfect. Anthony had spent years crafting his image on social media, carefully curating his success story. Now the internet was destroying that image in real time. My cousins had gone back to their temporary housing in Queens, but not before each of them shook Anthony's hand goodbye. Professional courtesy, the kind of grace he'd never shown me. "Antonio," Marcus had said, "if you ever want to learn about your family, about where you really come from, you call me." "Okay." Anthony just nodded, unable to speak. By 1:00 a.m., we were alone in the empty house. Anthony sitting on the floor where his expensive couch used to be. Me standing by the window, watching the new owner's moving truck pull up outside. "The Hendricks are eager to get settled," I said. "Nice family. 3 kids, 2 dogs. The kind of people who will actually live here instead of treating it like a museum." "Dad, please. There has to be some way to fix this." "Fix what exactly?" "Everything. The house, Elizabeth, my job situation, your job situation." He showed me his phone. 4 missed calls from his managing partner, Harold Whitmore, 3 emails marked urgent. "Whitmore wants to see me first thing Tuesday morning." This kind of publicity, it doesn't look good for the firm. Harrington Whitmore and Associates, one of the most conservative law firms in the city. They prided themselves on discretion, respectability, old-fashioned values. Having a partner's engagement party turn into a viral family meltdown wasn't exactly on brand. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to publicly humiliate your father. Anthony's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Elizabeth. "I'm staying at my parents' hotel tonight. We need to talk tomorrow. But I need time to process what happened. I had no idea you felt that way about your father." He looked up at me. "She's thinking about calling off the engagement completely. Smart woman. I always liked her better than you deserved." "Dad, what do you want me to say? That I'm sorry?" "Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I was embarrassed. Can we move past this now?" But that's the thing about consequences. They don't care about apologies. "Son, this isn't about hurt feelings. This is about character, about who you chose to become when you thought nobody was watching." At 1:45, my phone rang. Jennifer Lopez, my real estate agent, calling with an update. Mr. Rossi, I just wanted to confirm closing went perfectly. The Hendricks are thrilled with the house. They wanted me to thank you for leaving it in such beautiful condition. My pleasure, Jennifer. Also, there's been some interest in your story. A reporter from the Times wants to interview you about the family reunification angle. Apparently, the video from tonight is trending on TikTok. I looked at Anthony, who had heard every word. Tell them I'll consider it. After I hung up, Anthony stared at me like I was a stranger. You're enjoying this. I'm finding it educational. Educational how? Watching you discover what happens when you burn bridges. Turns out you need them to get back where you came from. By Monday morning, the story had exploded beyond social media. The Times ran a piece titled, "Italian Immigrant Sells Home to Reunite Family After Son's Betrayal." The New York Business Journal covered the legal implications. Food and Wine wrote about the return of authentic Italian cuisine to Little Italy. Anthony's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, gossip bloggers, even a producer from some reality TV show about family drama. But the call that changed everything came at 3 p.m. Harold Whitmore, senior partner at Anthony's firm. Anthony, we need to talk. My office, Tuesday, 9 a.m., sharp. After he hung up, Anthony looked at me with something I'd never seen before in his eyes. Genuine fear. I think I'm about to lose my job. Probably. Dad, I'm 34 years old. I've got law school loans, credit card debt, a car payment. Without this job, you'll figure it out. Smart guy like you. Harvard education. All those connections you've been building. But we both knew the truth. In a city like New York, reputation was everything. And his reputation was currently getting destroyed in real time by thousands of strangers who'd watched him disrespect his immigrant father. There has to be something I can do. There is. He looked up. Hopeful. You can learn. 7 months later, January 2025. I'm sitting in Marcus's new restaurant, Rossi's Kitchen 2, watching my nephew teach a cooking class to 15 eager students. Same copper pasta machine I brought from Italy in 1975. Same family recipes. Same pride in the craft. But everything else is different now. The restaurant is packed every night. Sophie graduated from her nursing program with honors. Now works at NYU, taking care of elderly patients who remind her of me. Joey's consulting business has 8 clients, all Italian companies expanding into American markets. Lucia's art is hanging in a gallery in Chelsea, paintings that celebrate our heritage instead of hiding from it. My cousins call me every Sunday. Real conversations. Not the polite small talk I used to get from Anthony. They ask about my health, share their dreams, include me in their decisions. They treat me like family because that's what I am to them. Anthony lost his job at Harrington Whitmore, an associate's 4 days after our confrontation. Harold Whitmore cited conduct unbecoming the firm's values and damage to professional reputation. Translation: viral videos of family dysfunction don't mix well with corporate law. He's working at a smaller firm now, personal injury cases mostly, making about 70% of his old salary. Elizabeth broke off their engagement permanently after her parents threatened to cut her off if she married that awful man who treats his father like garbage. She's dating a tech executive now. Posted the announcement on Instagram with the caption, "Finally found someone who shares my values." Anthony tried to reconcile last month. Showed up at Marcus's restaurant during dinner service. Asked if we could talk. He looked different, humbler, maybe older. The the kind of tired that comes from learning hard lessons. Dad, I understand what you were trying to teach me. Do you? I threw away everything that mattered for people who never really cared about me. I nodded. That's a start. Is there any way? Could we maybe try again? I looked around the restaurant, my real family laughing with customers, sharing stories, building something beautiful and authentic. Then I looked at my son, the stranger who happened to share my blood. Anthony, you're always welcome at Sunday dinner, but you come as yourself, not as Anthony Ross. You come ready to remember where you came from. And if you can't do that, then you stay lost. He left without ordering anything. I haven't seen him since. But Marcus saved him a seat anyway, just in case. Family isn't blood. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.